that Celine started now. And I'm working at the University of Bologna, the Department of Architecture, and we are partner in the Climate Kick funded project called Adaptive Cities through Nature-Based Solution, also called ACT on MBS. And today, together with my colleague Render Brosma, I don't know how to pronounce your surname at all, from Deltares, we will be presenting actually the results, let's say, of one of the activity, one of the tasks that we carry out in one of the work package of the project, together and actually led by the University of Wageningen, and with the kind support of Ilse here and also Montserrat, that I think will join us later on. What we will be speaking about today is basically green for cooling cities. As Render was mentioning before, what maybe some of you were not within the meeting already, so with us, is that we prepare a presentation that is quite general, let's say, so we didn't go really into the detail of some of the topic because we don't know exactly how the audience, let's say, is composed by. But we are more than happy at the very end to either provide more information or in the question and answer to give you some more hints and some more also tips for when to find the information. So the presentation will stay on a pretty general level, but there was a more in-depth analysis in the project. So we are happy with the more expert side, let's say, of the audience to share more than what we will be speaking about now. So I'm just trying, to see the screen because I see myself. Okay, very good. What we will be speaking about today. So it's a very, very first glance about nature in the city. What do we mean with this? What do we mean with nature-based solution? That is quite a fancy, let's say, term at the moment, but we do refer to something really specific with this. And at the very end, greening to mitigate urban heat island effect. So as I was saying before, we will following on cooling, and we will actually following in the second part of the presentation with Render presenting it on tools, on how to plan this cooling, let's say, infrastructure. So nature in the city, as we said before, we don't know your background, so you may come from very different backgrounds, and there are a lot of terms to speak about nature in the city. Let's say that if you're coming from a more, I don't know, architectural planning, whatever side, you maybe heard about green belts, green corridor, ecological corridors, and so on. If you're now working on these more as a planner or as an ecology science or biology science, let's say, you may have heard about natural capital, urban forest, ecosystem services, green and blue infrastructure. So there are quite some terms. What we will focus on today is the term nature-based solution. There are a lot of studies that relate these different concepts somehow. But what we would like you to think about today is that we refer here to the definition given by the European Commission in 2016, that actually brought a new concept. So it's not just the presence of nature in the city, what we are discussing about, but it's the idea of developing solutions to challenges that we found in our cities today that are actually inspired and supported by nature. So we are not just speaking about the nature itself and what is in the city, but how we can use nature to actually solve some issue. In the presentation of today, we are mostly speaking about global warming and urban warming, so the increasing temperature within cities. And also, this is also pretty important, the term nature-based solution takes into account together environmental, social, and economic benefits. So when you think about a solution, when you plan a new solution, you should have this kind of holistic view, not just thinking about the environmental and climatic side, but also the social and economic side. What do we mean with this? So when we refer to nature in the city, we actually refer to several types of nature, so to several, let's say, typologies of solution. And I'm just trying here to give you an overview of what do we mean. So of course, when we speak about nature in the city and nature-based solution, we refer to the possibility of building, for example, new urban parks, but also urban forests, so referring more to the tree components, so to the, as you see here, so even the street trees, to the community gardens. So this is also pretty common now in the city, that more and more this is a kind of a rooftop community garden, so places where people can actually also grow their own vegetables there. Green roof and walls, so we are also referring to, let's say, more hybrid solutions that are mostly actually built into buildings, no? So if we think about roofs and walls, in this case, it's actually how we can greening the buildings themselves within the city. But also green noise barriers, that this is not really relevant for the presentation today, but this is just to make you think about the possible, let's say, multi-functions, no, that these kind of solutions have. Because of course, for example, these green noise barriers can somehow buffer the noise that is coming from the street, for example, but at the same time, it does have a cooling potential. So the same solution can actually support the city and the planning in solving, or at least contribute, let's say, to solve different challenges at the same time. And this was also a really nice one that is, I think this is a project of Copenhagen, so floating parks, because in this presentation today, we will mostly refer to green solution, but when we speak about nature in the city, we also refer to the blue infrastructure, so to everything that is related with also new water, let's say, solutions, so that it could be, as in this case, this is a parking part of an urban canal, but it can also be, as in some cities happening, actually, for example, the reopening of some old canals that are now, let's say, under the level of the streets. So there is quite much also there to explore in terms of blue solutions. So not just green, but also blue possibilities, let's say. On climate change, there could be a lot to say about it. Here is just one of the graphs, and I really invite you to have a look at this website if you don't know already, that is called Our World in Data. They have amazing graphs about everything. This is just the one that is showing basically which is the increase in average temperature globally from from let's say the mid of the 19th century till today, so let's say a couple of years ago. And you see that we are already 1 year, let's say, warmer, that we were. And as you know, in the projection for the next year, this is going to increase pretty much. And the aim, for example, of the Paris Agreement is not to overcome the 2 degrees, or at least well below the 2 degrees. And you can imagine that to make it, we have to quite change the path that we are having now. Said so, of course, as you see in here, there is a warming that is already happening. So our societies and our cities, where most of the population actually lives, do have to adapt already to a change that is already happening, that's already happened. And that is creating some new challenges, some additional challenges, let's say, to the one that the cities were already facing. In this sense, we will refer in this presentation to 2 main challenges. There are quite some at urban level. But here today, we will be referring mostly to the urban heat island effect that I will briefly introduce to later on, and which could be the benefits of greening related to this urban heat island effect. There is a cooling effect, and we will tell you a couple of words about how this happens. And there is a matter of microclimate regulation. So at a very small scale, even at a building scale, green can actually support the cooling and the natural cooling of buildings in the cities, for example. And the other one related with global warming also is the water management. So actually improving greening cannot just cannot just make the city more resilient and can help them to adapt more to increasing temperature, but also to better manage water. As you know, I mean, there's an increase of permeability and natural water recharging in case we are actually de-sealing, let's say, part of the cities. But there is also the possibility of storage, no? Do some part of the city that can actually support in the storage of rainwater. What do we mean with urban heat island? And this is a very short and brief introduction to what we will be discussing later on. Why are the cities warmer in respect, let's say, to their peri-urban and rural area? It's not hard to understand that basically the way we built our city, the material we use to build our city, can absorb much more heat that the green part can have. That plants actually with their natural evapotranspiration and water evapotranspiration support the cooling itself, and that the city themselves can be from 3 to even 10 degrees hotter than the places around. So this is what it's called urban heat island. It basically means that there are areas in the cities that can be much hotter at the same time, in the same moment, in the same climatic condition that some other places that are not built, let's say, no, in that way. You can see also here like how the temperature can change from the, let's say, rural and suburban area to the really like city center or downtown, as it's called here. And what's the issue in here concerning climate change? That we know that these events will actually increase in the next years. And this is, of course, associated also with people well-being, and not just well-being, but also mortality and morbidity. There are some part of the population, let's say the elderly, no? So the older adults of the society that are much more vulnerable to this kind of heat, to this kind of hazards, let's say. And as you know, Europe is also a continent that is pretty fast becoming older and older. So we will have this issue more and more in our city in the next years. And this is a map coming from the European Environmental Agency that is just showing you which are, let's say, the most vulnerable region, but also the most vulnerable cities to this phenomenon. Because of course, this depends on the climatic condition, but as we just said, it also depends on the way we plan our city. So even though we are in an area, I'm speaking, for example, about Italy, where I'm coming from, that is actually more prone, no, to heat waves. If we manage to plan it right, we can actually decrease the number of days where there are these heat waves in the city that are really dangerous for the population. This is just an idea for you to understand what does it mean, the cooling capacity. So this is coming from a study that actually said that depending on different conditions that include the tree canopy cover, the size of the green area, and the soil cover, the cooling capacity can actually reach 6 degrees. And you can understand that it's pretty, valuable in the context of planning our cities. I will now leave this to Render. They will actually now present you some tools about how can actually we do it in the city. You're muted, Render. I can't hear you, at least.
Thank you, Claudia. Thank you for giving me the floor. I've prepared this presentation especially for the people who will be attending the what is it called? The Climathon next week. Sorry, I forgot the name. It will give an overview of the kind of tools and the approach you can take for using nature-based solutions to cool your city. And the arrows are not working, so I'll press this one. And I would like to start with an introduction based on a tool that we developed as Digitaltage, which is the Climate Resilient City tool. And we use this to plan for nature-based solutions. One of the participants already said he was working a bit on the same topic, so it might be interesting for him to see what we have been doing. And what you can do, you can implement different kinds of measures, like you see on the left-hand side, and you can see the effect on the right-hand side. For now, they're switched off. And the map that you see is a heat stress map. So these are the temperatures that are experienced at street level in the city. This is a part of The Hague, and I should be able to have a pointer. Sorry. You cannot see my error. Yeah, this one you can see. So this is the water, and these reddish colors are areas that are really hot. And typically in cities, these areas are paved areas, the roads that are really hot. Normally also the roofs, but roofs are filtered out in this image. And places where there's not too much wind, there's no shade. So these are really these red areas that are really hot, like this waterfront and these areas, for example. And this map is based on a detailed LiDAR image of 1.5 by 1.5 meters. So this provides a really detailed image of your heat in the city. And what we use this tool for, we normally use it in stakeholder sessions to plan for different kinds of solutions in an area to make it more climate proof. This is also what we did in The Hague with different stakeholders. So we added a lot of trees, fountains for cooling, also green roofs, etc., all kinds of measures. And on the right-hand side, you see what the effect of the different measures are. Maybe it's a bit small on your screen, but this tool has been the result of a development of about 3 years now. We also did a project before that, which was leading to the start of this development. And I see that the things have shifted, unfortunately. So what you can see is regarding the heat stress, we have two main indicators, or we used to have two main indicators. These were evapotranspiration, evaporative cooling. So how much, the more water you evaporate, the more cooling you have in an area. This can also be calculated based on a water balance model, so that was really effective. However, what does this evaporative cooling say about how much cooling you have achieved? So this is not really a useful indicator during the workshops we found out for cooling. So then we also had a number on heat reduction, which gave a number in degrees Celsius of cooling. And we found out that you really have to put a lot of measures in, like trees, to have a bit of significant effect. This was kind of demotivating in sessions. We were really getting tired of implementing all kinds of measures without having that much effect. As Claudia was already saying, the urban heat island effect can be up to 6 degrees Celsius, and the night even more. So what we did last year is that we introduced the cool areas. And these are areas over 200 square meters, which provide significant cooling. And this is something that you can really plan for. And the idea is that everybody has a cooling area within 200 meters of their house or the place that they work, so they can still go outside and still have a convenient place to go to without having too much heat stress. This already helped, but still people really wanted to implement measures and see the effects right away. So in the end, last year, we implemented a way where we can also calculate this really specific effect. So what we did, we planted, for example, a lot of trees along this waterfront, also on this area. We planted trees on this near this main road, for example, and also a line element of trees over here to cool down the city. And this is the heat situation, the current situation. And after implementing these measures, you will see the actual cooling effect of having these trees. And these trees provide especially shade, which is really comfortable. So it becomes more complicated and more complicated because people really want to have this effect. And the interesting thing is, this is not a problem, not so much a problem when you have, for example, pluvial flooding, because pluvial flooding, if you have pluvial flooding in one location, you can solve it over there, or you can try to solve it somewhere else, and you can always try to discharge the water to another location. You can move it. However, with heat, with the cooling that the tree provides, it's always local, and you cannot transfer it to another location. So so to summarize, what are the planning objectives that you can use, for example, when you want to cool a city? So you have the air temperature or the bed temperature, which I will explain later on. The increase evapotranspiration I put between brackets because, well, that's really difficult to steer on, and also the effect is not that clear to people. The cool areas that I explained, and there are also alternative measures that you can plan for if you want to create a cooler city. So what is the physical equivalent temperature? That is a temperature that people experience, like they feel it. So it's based on the air temperature, which is one of the main drivers, but also radiation. That's the short-wave radiation that you receive from the sun, but also long-wave radiation that you receive from the concrete that's warming up, for example. And also air humidity and wind have an important influence on this temperature. And this temperature really helps to indicate how much heat stress people are experiencing, because in the end, that is what you want to reduce. You want to reduce the heat stress that people experience. The disadvantage is that it is difficult to calculate. So you would need a micrometeorological model like ENVIMET or another one, or at least a data-intensive approach. You need detailed, local detailed data of, for example, the land use, but also the elevation and if there is vegetation present. So there are not so many countries where you have this national data set, for example, available, and it's often only made for individual cities. So, but it is one of the better indicators. These cool areas, it can be either shaded areas or areas with a lot of water. As I said, they should be sufficiently large. We defined it over 200 square meters to be able to have sufficient area to reside and have shade and cooling effect. And this also corresponds to the areas that Claudia was showing previously. And they should be attractive because we also did analysis for the city of Utrecht, and there are a lot of locations which are green and cool, but are not attractive to stay. So then they are still not suitable as a cool area. And you want to have them preferably within 200 meters of the location where you are, where you work, or where you live. And a good example of these areas are pocket parks, for example, but also tiny or micro forests in urban areas. The other alternatives that are frequently used is just to increase the area of green in cities, or the green factor. So the more green you have, the lower the average temperature is, but still it is really good to also have a look at where you plan them within the streetscape or where within the square to provide the optimal effect. And this also accounts for the shade it provides. And shade can be created by the trees, of course, but also by placing buildings on the right location, or providing shade by other means. And then there's also the question, what do you want to cool? We tend to focus on pedestrian and cycle routes where people are staying outside or reside outside. So you can walk from one location to the other on a cool route. You often see, for example, the cities in America, which tend to be really hot in summer, and there's not a lot of shade in the places where you walk. So people will tend to take the car, or maybe the bus, but they do not tend to walk too much outside when it is too hot. And also squares and parks are, of course, good locations to plant sufficient trees for these heat wave periods. Of course, it's nice maybe in the Netherlands to have warm areas, sunny areas in springtime, but also in summer when it really heats up, you would like to sit in the shade instead of in the sun. And then how do you want to cool your houses? You can, of course, plant trees, and other options are to implement green walls or green roofs to cool down your houses. And this, of course, reduces the energy requirements for air conditioners. I shifted intentionally one slide. What we do within this work package is that we provide an overview of about 60 tools that can be used for planning of nature-based solutions. A summary of this table can also be shared with the participants. So if you would like to receive one, please let us know, and we can share a brief version of this overview. And we gathered about, I think, 63 tools for planning of nature-based solutions or analyzing nature-based solutions and the effect of these solutions. And I would like to show a few of these examples of the tools that could be of help during the Climathon event next week. One inspirational tool that we are positive about is the Urban Blue-Green Grids tool. And it provides a very nice inspirational overview of all types of measures that you can take, like private green gardens, green squares and playgrounds, etc. And it provides pictures of these measures, a clear description of the measures, and also explanatory figures to indicate how these could be implemented and how they work. And all measures can also be filtered for the climate effect. So this could be a good starting point if you want to have inspiration on what kind of nature-based solutions can be used. And if you look for heat stress measures, then you will find some of these are very effective to prevent heat stress. A bit similar tool, but especially focusing on implemented nature-based solutions is the Urban Nature Atlas. This is a result of a NatureBasel project of the which was a EU project, and it provides also an overview of all kinds of implementations of nature-based solutions, what the setting was, what the key challenges was, main beneficiaries, and also the different project objectives. It is also a bit about governance, which makes it a bit different than others. And it also provides a very inspirational overview of what kind of measures can be taken or interventions can be implemented to increase your climate resilience. If you want to have more detail, you could go to the Race in Cities EU project. The project already finished, but this project provides a bit similar overview of the different types of measures, also provides figures, but it distinguishes itself from the other tools that it really tries to provide detailed data. It is based on scientific literature, and they have collected all kinds of data of the different types of measures. It's very detailed, and it does not make life very much easy because the values for the different implementations vary a lot. So there's a very big range in the effectiveness of these measures. And well, for example, if you look at reduction of pluvial flooding, the different kind of KPIs that are used to measure the effectiveness of the measure, these really vary. So it's about storing water on an annual basis that you have to compare with storage that you can achieve within a rainfall event of an hour, for example. It's about peak flow reduction, so it's really difficult to compare the different measures, but it provides a really detailed overview of, well, the effectiveness of the different measures. This one I already explained. This was a tool that we developed that can be used to plan for nature-based solutions, and you immediately see what the effect is on, for example, your storage capacity, your groundwater recharge, so for drought reduction and heat reduction. Because I already showed it, I will move fastly to the next one. Which is also the last one. And this is a community platform on nature-based solutions. This is a result of the OPLA project, and this is one of the sites that is being continued also after the project, and the community is, well, quite active. It is a big repository of nature-based solutions, and the main components of the website are the Ask OPLA, which is a crowdsourced inquiry service where you can ask questions that you have about nature-based solutions to the community, and the questions are answered also by the same community. Then there is the marketplace, where you can obtain guidance or software data and other useful resources for implementing nature-based solutions that you can use in your own project. And finally, then there is the OPLA community, which is really a networking environment where you can connect to other professionals and also to other cities to share your ideas and questions that you have regarding implementing nature-based solutions. this is the last slide of my presentation. So, well, thank you very much for your attention. And I think now there's time for questions and answers.
Celine, will you take
Yes.
it? Yeah.
Just you had someone joining who could not see the slide. I think we can start the presentation, and I'm happily turning everyone in the live. As mentioned at the beginning, if you would like to show who you are on the screen, that would be very nice. There was already a few questions coming in during, but Helena already answered a few. So one was asking if the climate resilient city tools is publicly available. It seems there is one available, right, at crctool.org.
Yeah, that can be used, but it does not allow for the calculation of the spatial heat island effect, the temperature effects. We only can provide that for the Netherlands because there we got the base data on the national heat stress map.
Ah bon? Alors,
I'm just gonna. I'm done.
Mute him.
Muted.
Sure.
Okay. I mean, maybe it was a question from CR. Yeah. I mean, anyway, if you have, and some was like, have the shown effects been validated, and if so, how?
How we calculated the effect of the different measures?
I guess so, yes.
Yeah. For example, for trees, we looked at the cooling effect of the trees in the current condition, and we took the same cooling effect if you implement new trees in the city. So the current cooling effect is about 5 degrees Celsius for this tree, so we use this for the cooling effect of the actual trees as well. This is basically how it works. And the same accounts then for grass and other elements that you can implement.
Thank
and
you.
the actual cooling effect is a bit more difficult, but I can share with you the link to the documentation on how it is calculated.
Does it answer your question, Martin? I don't know if you can join.
Hi, sorry. It answers the question partly. Yeah, one thing is how it's calculated. I was wondering if you, after using the tool, actually also validated the calculated values. So went out in the field and saw if the effects were as the tool suggested they would be.
I shared with you the link to the documentation. We did not validate it, but we worked together with researchers of the University of Applied Sciences in Amsterdam, who did a lot of measurements the past few years in Amsterdam to determine this effect. So we kind of not validated, but we parameterized the model based on their measurements and experience.
Okay, thank you.
So the basic validation, to be honest, that we did is based on colors, and that we would have we're working towards the same color of our same cooling effect of the trees of the implemented trees as the actual trees that were already present in the area. But it's really important to realize that the Climate Change City tool is really for the early planning phase in your project. It does not perform very detailed calculations. It is really as an exploratory tool to see what kind of measures can be implemented where and what is the approximate effect of these measures.
Thank you. If there is any question, just open your microphone or type them in group chat. I was actually, one of my question maybe is like where is the best moment just to think about this type of Are you working with urban planners, for example? When is the right moment just to think of implementing such solutions? Or can we transform an area to make it more green, more cooling?
Do you answer, Claudia?
Yeah, I mean, I think it really depends on who you are. I mean, again, who's your target? So if you are speaking with a business that maybe builds, I don't know, green wall or whatever, like more for the building side. I mean, in that sense, you should just make it clear that it's economically viable for them. So, I mean, this is much more another kind of boosting. But if we speak about planning, and that's what we are doing here, I mean, most of the city now where they are doing their master plan, they're trying to evaluate the actual situation. So they do an analysis of the state of the art to understand which are the hot area of the city. So as soon as you basically analyze your city and you realize which are the hottest area, that's the challenge that I was referring at the beginning to. So you should start thinking about the solution. And in that very moment, the planning tool, I mean, the example that Digitaltage developed is definitely a very good one. Then, I mean, all the cities are doing it in very different ways. So it's just a matter of making them reflect about the fact that the issue that we have about climate, and all the cities now are making adaptation plans. So all the cities are already thinking about which are their issue, that such an issue can be solved through greening. And then, I mean, as soon as you already do this switch, there are actually thousands of ways then to do this. But the switch is really to think that that's an issue that could be solved with. And when we mention greening here, it's real nature. So we're really speaking about trees and plants. So it's not green solution like environmental friendly. It's really using the nature.
Yeah, in many cities, few different processes come together. First of all, there's of course many cities are working on climate adaptation plans. Many cities have green solutions, and these processes come together, and these mostly come most effectively together in areas where there is a redevelopment going on, or sewers have to be replaced, and the whole streetscape has to be redesigned. Because only naturing or only climate adaptation is not a cost-effective way to implement measures. You really have to redesign your whole streetscape. And so when that happens, that's most often the occasion where you also start thinking about using nature-based solutions and make your street more climate resilient for your area.
Thank you. And a question again from Martin: if you monitor how many people use your tool online?
Maybe it's good if Martijn can contact me through email. I will share my email, and then we can maybe have some follow-up discussion about it.
Great.
Because I'm also very interested in the work he does, so it might be good to have a follow-up conversation about it. On that.
Okay, so you two will connect after the call. We are at the time. I don't know if there is any last comment, question from the audience before we close.
I was wondering whether someone of you will also be joining the Climathon event next weekend, or you're mostly participating in the digital days.
I don't know for the people online.
No.
Impact Hub Basel is for sure participating.
That's good.
And we decided last week that it will be an online event. So actually, wherever you are free to join as long as you have an internet connection. But very much encouraged to join.
I'm just sharing, in the chat, the link to the website of the project.
Yeah.
So I think it was in the presentation, but since it's pretty hard to find also for me, because it doesn't really have the name of the project itself. So you can find there, I mean, which are the cities also that are in our network. And I don't know if any of you is working in a city or in a local authority, because we have this kind of board or of cities, we can call it like that. And we are doing like labs with the city to basically share what we learned in the project, and also a bit more, let's say, personalized and tailored. So happy to be contacted on this.
Thank you. We'll share, I think, with the Basel City people who are co-organizing climate and with us anyway. So this session was recorded, and I'm going to stop now to press the button.